Hey, Next Levelers, Bob Gibbons, ready for another great show, the Next Level Show. And we are here today with Dave Copps. Dave is a longtime Dallasite, born and raised, and has started several companies, and we're excited to have him on the show today. His current company is called HyperGiant Sensory Sciences. That is one freaking imposing and intimidating name. So we'll get to that. But in the meantime, you can find them online at hypergiant.com/divisions /sensory -sciences. Holy crap.
Website to come. We're kind of new. That's what it is right now.
That takes the cake for the longest URL of any guest I've ever had.
It'll get better.
I've had like 190.
We're early.
Well, Dave, thanks for being on the show. Glad to have you.
Yeah.
All right. So to start off, you're known as an AI aficionado expert in Dallas.
Yeah.
How did you get interested in AI?
I think it's funny. You just fall into it. So I think in college, I've always been very curious. So in college, I was building my own computers. I was building my own computers and taking classes and dropping in on classes that I wasn't even signed up for. And
what? Dropping in on classes you're not signed up for?
Yeah, I was actually. I was kind of bored with college initially, so the classes I was taking, the required classes, things, I would actually walk around campus. I'd see something on the list like, oh, that sounds kind of cool, and I'd go sit in on the class. I call it dropping in. So I had an anthropology class, and I thought that'd be kind of fun. So I dropped in on an anthropology class, and it was a class that was about corporate anthropology. And I thought that's an interesting topic, right? And so I dropped in and ended up going every day for the rest of the session. The teacher came up to me and said, "Who are you? I don't see you here." And I said, "Well, I'm not in the class." And
Are you nuts?
Yeah, but eventually it became a thing for me. I graduated with the first person to graduate with a degree in industrial anthropology from the school. So
Industrial anthropology,
the study of people and cultures inside of a business, which has just turned into a huge thing for me. I'm doing a talk on culture at Dallas Startup Week on Monday with the great Molly Kane, and being moderated by Trey Bowles. Yeah,
nice.
So it's funny how things happen, right?
I mean, culture is such a huge topic now.
It is.
So many people come on to our show and they talk about the big challenges in their companies being hiring the right people, keeping the right people, and culture is one of the biggest things.
Well, yeah, probably. I'd love to talk about that. Maybe I'll back into the other question, but I think culture is the only thing that everyone in the company creates together, and so it can be guided by leadership, but it really emanates and fosters from everyone, and so we see it as the most important part of a business, So from a leadership perspective, you have to have three things in place. One of those is good pay, so salary where people feel good about what they're making and feel rewarded for their skill level. The second thing is healthcare. So in my companies, we pay healthcare 100%.
As a startup?
Yep, 100%.
Wow.
And I tell my investors that, we tell them, hey, just so you know, don't freak out. We pay healthcare, and we want that not to be a worry for anyone. And the third thing is a joyful work environment. It's just a place where they come and they want to be there, right? So I don't even like the word work. Really, if you kind of approach life in the right way, you're always playing, right?
Yeah.
Playing with something. And so we like to create an environment. Our culture, we have a name for it. We call it an Ubuntu culture. It's a Swahili word.
Ubuntu,
yeah.
Ubuntu. It's fun to say.
Well, it doesn't have a direct English translation. It means I am who I am because of who we are together. And that's the kind of culture we like to build, is that no divas, right? So if someone thinks they're a rock star and they know they're a rock star and they act like a rock star, we don't want them. I don't care how talented they are. I don't want them. It's destructive.
I've heard other companies call that the no a-hole rule.
That's right. we have a strict no a-hole rule. I've not hired incredibly talented people for that reason.
Really?
Yeah. And so when you come into our companies, your first thing is you ask yourself, how can I lift up the people around me? That's the first question you should ask yourself, not how can I be better than the person next to me. If everybody plays by that rule, it's an incredible environment.
So you're really looking for team players,
people
that want to be part of an ecosystem within the company.
But not team players in the sense that we hit like a mediocrity. You know what I mean? Like sometimes people say, oh, I can hide in a team.
Yeah.
We want teams that push each other.
Yeah, that's like my golf game. I don't want to play golf if I'm having to keep track of my own score. I only want to play if I'm part of a scramble.
That's right.
Because I suck at golf. So.
I always say when people ask me my handicap in golf, I say golf.
Yeah, that is my handicap.
Startups killed my golf game.
So you don't want people that are hiding within the team,
right?
But that are excelling, but bringing the whole team up together.
That's right. I mean, a team, and we also have what we call a row environment. It's called a results-only work environment. Like we don't have vacation policy. Mm-hmm. So you don't come in and get 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. There's no vacation policy. You take off when you take off. Before you do that, check with your team and make sure everything's taken care of and work with them to make sure that works. And so we kind of create this air of that you own your stuff.
Yeah.
You're responsible. You're responsible for things. Your responsibility for things is a gift to everyone around you. Don't worry about me. I got my stuff, and if I need help, I'll ask.
Interesting.
But can I help you? And just create that open environment where everyone's wanting to help each other reach new heights. Right.
That must be easy to. I say easy in air quotes, easy to hire people in that way. Yeah, you got to make sure that they're really good at what they do and they know their stuff. But I got to believe that people really want to be in that kind of an environment.
They do. I think classic structures of corporations are broken. And it really kind of started in the 80s. I was listening to a gentleman last night who said that I guess starting in 1980 going forward, we worked more and more hours.
Yeah.
So something happened where we all kind of realized, we got to work harder and harder and more hours. And I don't care if someone works less hours as long as they get done what they say they can get done. If you need to spend more time doing it, then do that. If you don't. But we want to create an environment where it's based on what we produce, not how many hours you work. That's irrelevant.
It's a meritocracy.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and everyone encourages everybody else to be a part of that.
And it's interesting because it seems like so much of what we hear in the media and in politics is not about personal responsibility. Mm-hmm. It's all about how can I be taken care of by others.
That's right, and falling into a system. Right, we don't want to have a system. I don't want to ever have to hire a manager. If you need to be managed, you shouldn't work here. That's kind of the thing we say is just come in and do it. Get us excited that you're here.
Yeah.
Show us what you can do. And if someone's having problems, it's not, God, I got to fire that person. It's about, here's a kind of a strange thing I do. This is one of those things that just kind of pushes you to be a little better than maybe you could ever be, right? Is that I try to kind of create an unreasonable expectation of myself. So if someone's having a problem in one of my companies, I ask myself, who am I being such that person's having a problem? Wow. I put it on me, right? And there's always an answer to that, by the way. Because you can always, is it unreasonable? Yes. But I can look at that and say, okay, well, maybe the reason they're not successful is because I'm not paying enough attention. I'm going to take them to lunch, or something like that. And
right.
So it's, who am I for other people is kind of the question I'm always asking myself.
It's definitely it sounds like a servant leader kind of approach. Is that
exactly right? Yeah, it's one of my favorite books. Robert Greenleaf, I reread that book probably once a year. And I just think that's so important. Leadership's not about top down. Leadership's about stepping inside with people and leading from within. I don't have big offices. I try to put my place right in the middle. And I don't need that. I have to get walls because I talk a lot and piss off developers. So, but outside of that, I try to kind of stay integrated.
Yeah, the whole open office thing is. Looks cool, but is not always practical.
Yeah, some people need walls.
Well, I mean, sales guys, for example, if they're on the phone all the time, I mean,
that's right.
It's hard for them to do that sitting next to a developer who needs a little bit of quiet.
That's right.
Every now and then.
Yeah.
Interesting. So back to the thing about AI then. What was it about? What is it about AI that's so fascinating to you? And how'd that start?
Yeah, I think so the early fascination was my very first company. I started with a partner, and we started messing around with algorithms, machine learning, a long time ago, way before it was cool.
Yeah.
Now everybody's doing machine learning and AI. We've been doing it for 15 years, right? We were doing it way before it's cool. But we were sitting in I'll never forget it. We had the office at it was at the Addison Airport. We officed in the control tower area.
Oh, wow.
And it was so funny because it was cheap, right? So we had 400 square feet and 4 people in there. And we were writing algorithms that could read text and try to understand what's being said in the text, like reading and understanding human language. And, there was one day where we put in a query, like a word, and it came back and said, oh, yeah, that's related to these 10 things. And we looked at each other and went, whoa, it worked. And that was kind of this moment where we said, this is something special. I can actually teach a machine to read and understand human language on a massive scale. Over time, that turned into Brainspace, my last company, where we were ingesting hundreds of millions of documents and having a system that could read those documents incredibly fast. I mean, thousands of documents a second. By the time it's finished, it could create an understanding of what was said in all those documents. Like if you could read 100 million documents and remember every word and every concept in every document and how they're related to every other word and every other concept in every other document, that's what it did. We called it a brain. It created a brain. And you could use that brain then discover new things. So now you have this superpower, right? You have a brain that's powered by 100 million documents, and it helps you find things in people. And we ended up going into the e-discovery business where, these large litigations would happen, and they'd have millions and millions of emails and documents and trying to find the bad guys, right? So
right.
When the BP oil spill happened, how do they find out what happened, who said what when? And before us, they would have 300 attorneys, in multiple offices around the country reading documents, and we changed that to like 5. You could have a system that could ingest all the information, understand what's happening, and you could put in a document like a hot email, it's a hot doc, and say, find more like this. It would read it, understand it, and instantly match you to other documents that are related, even if they didn't have the same words.
So you're telling me that your AI system was putting lawyers out of business?
Well, it's a
get us some more of that.
There's a larger trend that maybe could be a topic today.
Probably, but we're gonna have to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Great.
All right, we are back talking to Dave Copps. Dave is the former owner and founder of Ingenium. Did I say that right?
Uh-huh.
I can't believe that. And Brainspace, and now HyperGiant Sensory Services.
Sensory Sciences.
Sciences. I'm sorry. Why did I say services? I got to read.
With my partner, Chris Rohde. He actually founded the company, and I joined after. But
oh, nice. Well, that's
yeah.
Well, but you have co-founder status,
yeah.
right?
Chris is my partner in crime. We've been 3 businesses together, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, we know each other it's incredible.
So define AI for me.
I used to say AI is the science of teaching machines to think like we do. Okay. Now I don't say that anymore.
Why not?
Because I think it's now the science of teaching machines to think and learn in ways that we never could dream of.
Is that because of the volume of data it can process?
Yeah. So, when you think about how we learn as humans, right? We look at a page, we look at a book 1 page at a time. So it's very serial, one thing at a time.
Yeah.
If you're a radiologist, you look at 1 scan at a time. But that's how we operate as people. AI has this incredible ability, breadth, to be able to see, thousands or millions of things simultaneously. So if you can look at whether it's documents or scans or whatever, but if you can look at those objects at a breadth like that, you start to surface patterns that you can't see if you look at them one at a time.
Okay.
So AI gives us a superpower to kind of see things that have always been present in the information, but we've never been able to see it.
Right.
So it gives us this power to emerge patterns of things that are happening in data that can be incredibly useful and critical even. I think we're at a point where AI has become I'll call it an apex technology, meaning that it's really behind all the incredible inventions that are happening today. Every industry will be affected by AI, whether it's nanotechnology or genetics. AI is behind all of it. I heard the other day that we have 39 phase 3 gene sequencing trials and genetic therapy trials.
Yeah.
There were none a couple of years ago, and that's because of AI. We're able to accelerate the research and the learning of those things in such a way that every industry is going to move faster.
So AI, of course, stands for artificial intelligence. Yeah. Is there actually intelligence going on in AI?
I think there's a lot of hype around that, but I'll say this, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're not there yet. Could we be there? Sure. I think it kind of depends on how you define intelligence, right?
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing right now is that AI is learning in ways that we don't understand. So I was at a conference once where I was speaking at a MIT conference, and I was backstage with one of the speakers, and he's building a language translation. And I asked him, he talked about a deep learning system that had changed, and it was Google's Translate, right? And Google Translate, he said basically that they took 12 years of human curation and fed it into a system. It learned it in 48 hours. And then its ability to translate was incredible, right? And if you are a fan of Google Translate, you've seen how it's gotten so much better now. But when I asked him the question, how is it learning, his answer was, I don't really know. We don't really know. And that's the part that I think most people don't understand is that the myth is about AI is that we're teaching machines to think like we do. That's the myth.
Right. That's
not what we're doing. We're developing algorithms and AIs that can think in ways that we could never think. And so and we don't really know how they're thinking, so it's a
How is that
scary.
possible? I mean, if we build the machines, not Bob,
right.
but if you build the machines, how is it that you don't know what it's doing?
Because you're not scripting in how it learns anymore. That's the big change that happened. So before, old AI, you would give it rules. It was rules-based, and so it would learn by the rules you give it to learn. And that's not what we're doing anymore. Now AIs can learn by example. I can show an AI videos, and it can watch the videos and learn by watching without rules from me. It's an algorithm that helps it understand things and be deterministic about objects. And initially, we're teaching it. So like in machine vision, where sensory sciences is now operating, we'll teach it. This is a car, this is an object, this is a person, this is a cup, this is, but over time, it knows those things and starts to teach itself. So, I've seen this. This is a cup. I've seen a cup before. This is a cup. This is a person. I know that now. And so the transfer of learning initially is from people to machines, but eventually where we get to is it's machine to machine. It's teaching itself to get better and better and better to a point where it's performing at a level that's not humanly possible.
Yeah. So when I think of AI, and a lot of the examples that I've heard look to me like it's number one, speed, and number two, looking for exceptions or correlations or relationships. Like you talked about the BP oil spill and how it could take all these documents, find the parts that seemed similar, kind of put those together. But then it still required a human, tell me if I'm wrong, to look at that and figure out what to do with it.
That's right. And that's where we are today. We call it augmented intelligence. So where we are today with AI, for the most part, is that we're at a place where we're radically accelerating the productivity and efficiency of people through their interactions with AI.
Okay.
And so our system that we built at Brainspace did that. It was a system that allowed people to have a view into hundreds of millions of documents they've never had before, and it was a visualization that they literally could navigate hundreds of millions of documents by just clicking on images. The problem we were trying to solve there was how can we create a product where a single person can navigate 100 million documents on one page? And that's what we created there. In sensory sciences, we're taking on the idea of creating abilities in perception that were impossible. So instead of doing words and things like that, like we did at Brainspace with HyperGiant sensory sciences, we're actually teaching machines to see and sense the world like we do. So if a camera is looking at an environment, can it understand not only the things that are in the image, but can it understand what's going on? So when people are interacting with each other or with things and objects, what's the story there? Like when you look at things, you know what's going on. You see people arguing, and you know they're arguing.
But I don't know why.
That's right. But an AI today doesn't know that. It just sees people talking. So how can we teach the AI to understand what's going on and perceive environments? And so the business then becomes, you start working with large companies that have multiple environments, like an oil company might have 100 wells. Well, they can't perceive 100 wells right now. There's no way, right? Someone drops by once a week, and and things get stolen, and the operations aren't effective. And but if we can create a system that can, with cameras and sensors, can start to understand what it's seeing in those environments, and one person from one place can start to perceive all their environments, we scale perception like never before.
So in that circumstance, you're monitoring all these different wells, you're doing that for the purpose of making sure they're operating and pumping and doing what they're supposed to be doing and anticipating a breakdown or some anomaly?
That's exactly right. Like when a person visits a well once a week, there's only so much they can determine. Now, if we have a persistent access to that well through cameras and sensors, we can start to understand, first of all, what's normal, because we'll watch it persistently 24 hours a day and say, oh, this is normal. So we can tell you when something's abnormal, something's not happening that doesn't usually happen, or maybe someone approaches the well from not the road across the field in a truck. Mm-hmm. Well, if the system understands that that's a bad thing, it can alert you to that, right? In other words, instead of just saying, truck, what if it said, a truck is coming to the well from a place that's probably not a good place to come from. I better tell someone about it.
Not a normal place.
That's right.
Anyway.
Yeah. So the AI understands the situation enough to where it can alert people about things that are happening.
So it's looking for normal patterns and then looking for the exceptions.
Yeah.
And then will it be able to decide what to do about that? Or is that, again, we're not there yet. But
eventually, you start to create these if this, then that scenarios, right? If I see this, then I do this. So we are building an application layer on top of the AI, which says when you see something like this, do this, alert this person, and so that's going to be a part of the product.
So do you have to have a different program and a different algorithm for sort of every circumstance? So you talked about the thing about the oil well, but take that out of oil wells and put that into a food manufacturer. Sure. Now that food manufacturer has a whole different set of parameters and issues and patterns, et cetera. Yeah. So does that require a totally separate whole thing to be built, or can it be adapted from what you did at the oil well?
It's a really great question because that's one of the things we're claiming is what differentiates us. Right now with machine vision, for certainly, you're all starting from zero. Mm-hmm. So if you're at a well and you learn from 0 up to 90%, then you point it at a retail store, you're starting from zero. Yeah. And our theory is that there should be a base learning. Like for instance, when you rode a bike for the first time, you didn't have to relearn gravity and momentum and inertia. You didn't have to relearn those things. You knew them, right? And so it made riding a bike easier.
But I had to remember not to look around the back to make sure my dad was still watching, because otherwise I'm going to plow into that car again.
Exactly right. We think AI should have that. So building kind of an experience or history layer where as you go to a new environment, you're not starting from zero. Oh. And so that's one of the things we're working on.
Interesting. So I don't think we can even scratch the surface of how does that happen. How do you start from not zero when you change environment?
Yeah. Well, because there's certain things, like when you walk outside the building today, is it going to be the first time you ever saw a car? Yeah. No, there's certain things that are always around roads and cars. And there's base learning,
So it recognizes things that might be similar in a different environment.
That's right.
And they already know what to do with that thing.
But, so that may cover 40% or 50% of the learning, but you still got the rest of it to kind of learn custom to that environment. So maybe there's a certain kind of truck that it comes in that environment. You have to know what kind of truck that is. Maybe it's a pipe truck if it's oil, and so you teach it that's a C51 pipe truck. And it learns about that and says, okay, got it.
Well, and then it also needs to know what that pipe truck looks like when it's loaded and when it's empty.
That's right. Exactly right. And through many, many examples, we can say this one's half loaded or full, or maybe a sand truck is full or not full. And, so it can make judgments like that. And then this transfer learning goes another level. Now, if you have 100 environments, the different environments can actually teach each other. So if environment number 50 learned a new truck, you can say to the other 99 environments, hey, this is a new truck.
That's where we end up with Ex Machina.
That's right.
So your lease is going to expire in the future, and you're trying to figure out how soon should I start working on that? Is it 6 months or a year or 2 years before my lease expiration? Well, there isn't an exact date. This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and my clients always meet with me about 2 years before their expiration date, and we create a strategy. And then we review that strategy again a year later. And so we're always working toward what's right for them, not what they think might be an arbitrary date by which they need to figure this out. The keys in determining how much time you need are whether or not you're going to move, whether or not you need to expand, will there need to be construction on wherever you're going to go to, and all those things take more time. So do a strategy meeting a couple of years out with your advisor, and that'll make things a lot more clear. For more information, please go to texastenantrep.com. That's TexasTenantRep.com. All right, Next Levelers, back. Bob Gibbons talking to Dave Kops here on the Next Level Show. Check them out on their website. I'm going to do this website.
No,
again.
don't do it. just Google HyperGiant Sensory Sciences.
HyperGiant.com/divisions/sensory-sciences. At least I got it faster. See, that was my AI.
Yeah.
I learned it once. Now I can do it faster.
We're a startup. We got to get still getting the website up.
That's hilarious. By the way, I like the website.
Yeah.
The sensory sciences part of the website is really cool because it looks very retro. You have little Jetsons thrown in there.
Yeah. I love the theme.
That was really, whoever was your designer for all that should be complimented.
HyperGiant Industries guy. So Ben Lamb, our partner, he's just a brilliant PR and marketing and just a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone better.
I loved it. I thought it went really well. Yeah. It was cool. All right. So we've been talking about all this AI stuff. And so whenever you've been in this thing for 15 years, what did you go into it thinking you were going to be doing? And how has that been absolutely wrong?
It's funny, as you get older, you get wiser, right? And I think Steve Jobs had a great quote that I think answers that question pretty well for me. And it's that you can only connect the dots looking backwards. You can't connect the dots looking forward.
Okay.
So my theory kind of in life in general, and my partner and I were talking about this yesterday actually, is that you should always be focused on possibility and creating abundance, because whatever you create today may not matter today, but it'll matter tomorrow or the next day or a year from now. And so it happens to us all the time where someone will call, today and say, hey, well, I was thinking about you because X, Y, Z. And I didn't cause that, but I kind of did because I met that person 3 months ago and had a great conversation with them. So I guess the point is, I think vision is not defined well. People think vision is like an end point. To us, vision is a starting point, not an end point. Your vision should always be affected every day by people you talk to and conversations you have and things that happen in the market, and you should learn and adjust that vision, right? So we don't see vision, and like I didn't have a vision for my life 20 years ago. I just try every day to look for greatness in people and create possibility and focus on what we're doing. So I think I'm a big believer in attention creates reality, right? Whatever you are focused on, that's going to show up in your life. So if crazy things are showing up in your life that you don't like, look at your attention, look at what you're focused on,
That's interesting you say that, because we had a guy on the show a few weeks ago, Antonio J. Smith, and his thing was find out what your audience is focused on and jump in front of it. So you got to know what your audience is interested in, and jump in front of that if you want to get their attention. If that's the audience whose attention you want.
Yeah, and I would probably add to that, because there's also this kind of a saying that because some of these things are life lessons, but they're also business too.
Yeah,
you can't draw a line between them. And one of those I to kind of think about is people should live their life as a creation, not as a reaction to things or as a reacting observer. Most people live their life every day, and something happens, so you react. Another thing happens, you react. And pretty much you spend your day like ping pong balls, right, reacting to things. Where if you're a creator and you push things out in the world, then the world reacts to you.
Okay.
So it's this idea that if we all kind of live life as a creation, like what are you creating today? Whether it's a relationship or a new product or a new idea, what are you creating today? But create something every day. And watch what happens. Watch how the world reacts to you, And then
adjust if needed.
Yeah. So maybe you don't always speak just to what the audience wants. What if you threw something into that pebble into that pond that started a new conversation?
Yeah. So living your life intentionally.
Yeah.
But with adjustments.
Yeah. I think, I'm a big believer in the present.
Yeah.
I think, the future is a fantasy and the past is gone, so it's all that matters is what you do today.
Yeah.
And
I've heard that anxiety is a fear of what's coming.
Yeah.
And depression and worry is about what has happened in the past that you can't change.
That's right. And what people tend to do is commingle their realities. Like something bad happened yesterday, so you carry that into today.
Yeah.
Carry that energy into today. And what happens? More bad stuff, right? So I like to say you got to have a short memory. Something bad happens. First of all, I don't believe in failure. So and this is kind of a weird
you
thing.
You stole my next. I was going there.
Okay. Well, I think it's a man-made concept, right? The idea of failure is basically a judgment, right? That's all it is. All that happens in life, in the world, and in your business is that things happen, and then you choose to do something about that, right? Somebody else's opinion that that's a failure is not that important to me. I don't need that judgment. All I focus on is what am I doing, what happened when I did that, and what do I need to do next? So we recast failure as iteration, right? And that's more a modern way of thinking about it too, like even gaming, right? Games in the old days, you died, Yeah. No one dies anymore. Then you spawn new lives, and you can go on and on and on and get more lives, and that's kind of the way people are today. And I think businesses are like that. Don't focus on bad stuff. And if you have a lot of people talking about failure, don't talk with them. Get rid of them, or talk to them and say, listen, all that happened was X, and we're going to choose to do this. Like in my last company, we had 2 products, and one of them just wasn't working. Mm-hmm. The market was kind of not saying what we thought it would say. So, so kind of a weird thing, we kind of celebrated it. We cut the product, took all the people that were on that product and put them on the other product, which is just exploding. And they all had incredible abilities on user experience and AI. We added that to the other product, and everything just exploded out. So another version of that could have been, oh man, we built this product and it failed. Mm-hmm. It's terrible and it sucked and didn't get them.
All you people are fired.
None of that matters. Yeah, none of that matters. All that matters is what happened and what do you choose to do about that? Don't worry about judging things or people.
I love the way you said that failure is really just iteration. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many people that love to talk about Thomas Edison and how he found 10,000 ways to not build a light bulb. Yeah. And then he finally found the one way to do it. Yeah. And that they associate that with failure, but it's really iteration to get to the one that really did what he wanted it to do.
It was interesting how he responded to that. Like he didn't say, no, I didn't fail. I just found 1,500 things that didn't work.
Yeah.
So he had that mindset, right? And it's mindset's important. I know people kind of think that's mojo, but it's just not. It's really important. Like your filter on life, how you see things and people, and how you, and then how you project things back out to the world is very important. And you can create a life that's very different by just looking at those filters you have.
Yeah. So when you were at Brainspace, mm-hmm. and why did you sell Brainspace and start Sensory Sciences instead of just continuing Brainspace and just adding on to it with what Sensory's doing?
It's a great question because I think as an entrepreneur, you never want to sell your company. You never do. I didn't. Brainspace still, to me, I have family there. Those people are so important to me to this day. And sometimes I just ping them on a text with a radical, hey, just thinking about you today. And so selling the company was a big decision. I think the company that purchased us, Sixtera, is done great. Is doing great things with. So there's a lot going on. But what would I wanted to do if? I think I would have wanted to just keep it forever and grow it and maintain the family. I think what made the decision for me was kind of looking. Should I look at this as something that's been? It's a great story, but are there other things that are possible in my life? And in the lives of others,
Yeah.
So we made the decision to sell, and I will say that's the best moment and the worst moment of an entrepreneur, right? It's the best moment because you sell a company, and there's obviously great things that happen from that, and it's the worst moment because, you love the company, and I'll never forget the day I announced the sale. We're all standing in the cafe, and you'd expect everyone to go, "Yay!" and everyone went, "Oh no," But it changed later because then you start to see that. But it was just because we don't want things to change, right? They want to just maintain this great culture and family, and I had some great people. I consider it a real privilege in my life to work with such great people.
Well, so you could have kept Brainspace and continued to own it and let somebody else run it. You could have kept it and added on the divisions and doing the things that you're now doing at Sensory Sciences, or you could have just sold it and let somebody else, said, "Hey, that's going to be a distraction. I need to be 100% on the new thing." Yeah. And it sounds like I'm not trying to project onto you what my options are. You can only choose from among my options. Yeah. But there's a range of options.
Yeah, that's right.
So interesting to see who does which of those options.
You consider all of them, and again, I think when you're kind of when you're a true entrepreneur, you never want to sell your company. You just don't. I mean, it's
your baby.
It's your baby, yeah. And I think my wife tells me, she goes, you'll never get a job because you're unemployable. She's right. I am unemployable. I could never get a job somewhere. I have to be creating something, and that pisses people off when you create things without
their permission.
They're directing it
while you're supposed to be doing something else.
So I'm a terrible employee. So that's one of the reasons I start companies.
So whenever you start companies, do you do this on your own dime, so to speak? Do you get investor money? Are there pros and cons of the two?
Both, yeah. So this one, so I left in April, and my partner from the last 3 companies, Chris Rohde, he left like a month after me, and Chris was actually doing a lot of the work. He's the one that was really pushing things, and I was kind of consulting with him a little bit, if you will, and then of course he kind of looped me in. I was like, okay, this is cool, I was still kind of making the decision if I was going to do another one or not, but I just love this stuff, and this is like I said before, like I don't consider this work. This is really fun for me. So I can't imagine what I would be doing if I wasn't doing something like this.
So what did you learn from selling a company?
Well, lots of things. I think one is obviously you create something for your family that so your future's it's okay, right? Mm-hmm. So that worry's not there, and that's more meaningful to someone who's been to the bottom, and we've been there. I've been to that point where you have no money, you've borrowed from your family, you have absolutely nothing. You're about to have to pull your kids out of school, and
wasn't there a story something about even in I think it was Brainspace where you were having problem even making payroll at one point?
That was actually the previous company.
Okay.
I made the decision to pay payroll myself, and my wife's looking at me like, "Are you crazy? We can't afford to do that more than 1 month, And but we committed that we would never fire anyone for that reason. If someone wasn't working out, sure, but we would never fire someone because we couldn't make payroll. Like that's not acceptable. And so staying committed to that, I paid payroll probably a couple times. Those are the times where you're kind of putting it all out there, right? You're betting on the come, as they say in Vegas, right? That this is going to be. That's you saying, I'm not worried about doing this because this is going to be successful. Yeah. And when people see that, it changes who they are, right? Now we're metabolically different because everyone knows we're committed to making this happen, so they're going to be committed. It changes everything.
So I kind of interrupted you on the lessons learned from selling a company.
Yeah, I think so. One is that's a good thing. I think the hard.
I'm sorry, I just saw our time.
Okay,
I'm way over. I apologize.
That's all right.
Be right back. We are back talking to Dave Copps, Sensory Sciences, under the HyperGiant umbrella. Yeah. I understand that's an umbrella. We're not going to get into that. We just don't have time to go into all that. But hey, I wanted you to talk about a little bit when you alluded earlier to your LexisNexis data and all the language and all that kind of stuff. But there was a story about that and how your product was sold to them, how you made that deal. Tell us about that.
That's one of my favorite stories because it's kind of especially for entrepreneurs out there when you're going through the hard times. We were 4 or 5 guys in a old house, and as an office, and we had this opportunity. Someone said, "Hey, LexisNexis, largest legal publisher in the world, is putting out an RFP for semantic search. You should join." So we weren't ready yet. We're still building technology, but I thought if we went ahead and just went in on the deal, we could at least find out what we're not doing well. You know what I mean? It shows us what we need to work on.
Get some feedback.
Yeah. Well, the short of it was we won.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's one of those. I think this is a great example of how do you define an oh shit moment, right? And I think an oh shit moment is when you simultaneously are very excited and scared, right?
Yeah, we'll have to bleep that. But go ahead.
Okay, sorry. But so that was the so we got the deal, but we beat 3 other companies that were. So we were 4 people with maybe $80,000 in revenue. We beat multi-billion-dollar companies with thousands of employees. And so
wow.
Then, I'll never forget the moment. I had one of my developers look at me and go, "What are you doing?" He said, "This is impossible, right? 4 people can't deliver this to, And I looked at him and I said, "I know we can do it." And I wasn't shooting. I really thought we could do it.
Yeah.
And so we did it. And the long story short was it worked. There's still a client at Brainspace 8 years later or whatever. But what's funny is the story I'll never forget is we were working on the product. We're going to do a sales demo with 1,500 salespeople, right? And the night before, nothing's working. Not one query is working, one search. We find one that works, one. And we went to the meeting and did the one query as a demo and said, "Oh, wasn't that great? Yeah, isn't it awesome?" And the guy raises his hand and says, "Hey, well, why don't we get one from the question from the audience?" And we had, "Oh no, yeah, okay, sure." And they asked, and it was some kind of a golf swing trainer for a patent. Looking for patents for golf swing trainers. And my partner Chris wrote, he's putting every word he possibly can in there to try and give us the best chance, and it worked.
Oh,
it worked. We couldn't find two queries the night before, but it worked.
That's because it was learning in the night, and you didn't know it.
Our God's looking down on us and says this company's going to work, And but those moments, right? You keep pushing. And I have a cup, in my office that has CUP on it, and everyone thinks it's just a cup, and it stands for constant, unrelenting persistence. That's what I think, and I think about it every day. Like never stop trying, and things will happen.
Now, how did you win that assignment? Was it because the other companies that were bidding really didn't have the information yet, and they were betting on the come, and you had already started building the real thing?
No, it was interesting because we had a totally different approach. We had a system that for everybody else, the first thing Lexis had to do was re-index all their information, which was, massive amount of information.
Oh, amazing.
For the technology. We had a technology that we just layered our search on our engine on top of your existing indexes. So the way we sold it was I looked to Pete Vanderheyden, one of my favorite people now. I looked at Pete and I said, "Pete, if they don't work, you're dead in the water. If I don't work, you take me off the top and have exactly what you had when you started."
Oh, that's
in that sense, I may be the smallest company you're talking to, but I'm the least risky.
Actually, that's huge.
Yeah,
what are the big things people sell?
Yeah.
Save money, save time, less risk.
Yeah.
Those are the biggies.
Yeah. Pete took a chance on us, and he's rewarded for that. It worked really, really well. So
interesting. Yeah. So you were up against the giants, the Goliaths, and you were David, and you won.
Mm-hmm.
When you start looking at the AI world,
yeah.
It seems you mentioned in some of the pre-interview information you gave us that some of the giants in technology, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, et cetera, are really buying up a lot of AI companies.
Sure, yeah.
What are the risks of them buying all these companies? And are we going to have too much of this consolidated into a few hands?
Well, that's certainly a possibility. I think people need to realize that AI this is a different thing. We're about to go through a transformation in society and humanity that may be unprecedented. Literally everything's going to change. The way we work, the way we think, the way we move from place to place with autonomous cars. Even bigger concerns about how we govern, like looking at what's happening in China with AI, right? How we govern, or how we conquer disease, or ultimately evolve as humans. We're the first species that'll have to contemplate coevolution with technology. So it's important that we focus on AI. It's you can't stop this, right? At this point, it's an inevitability. So we want to have control of this stuff and do the right thing, right? And that's
right.
So you don't want to see AI going to a few companies, right? They're smart because they have a lot of data. Right now in the world today, the people with the most data and the best AI are going to win. Period. You'll be able to learn more things about your customers and your clients than any other company. You'll be able to create efficiencies and automation that they don't have. And look at Amazon today as the poster child, right? They automate everything. So the disruption that's coming is not AI particularly. It is, but it's really what AI causes, which is automation.
Right.
So there's cognitive. If you're performing a cognitive or physical function that's repeated a lot every day, that's probably going to be automated. So
that can handle, or that can touch so many industries.
That's right.
Are there any particular industries or job descriptions in particular that you think really should be most concerned?
Well, I'm saying the next 7 to 10 years, right? That's when you're going to see this all happen.
Please don't say commercial real estate broker.
Well, I think you're definitely going to see, obviously, like truckers and eventually taxi drivers, retail clerks. Those will all go away, and then. But you could even see it dipping into white collar jobs, like radiology, and
Well, and you mentioned the lawyers.
Yeah,
I mean, just in
that's
your own
right.
example from Brainspace.
That's right. So it's like I do think, and this is probably a whole other conversation someday, but I do think we're heading into a transformation that's going to challenge huge things in our society, and one could be just the whole concept of work. Like, is that going to be redefined now? Like, I think in Finland or something, they moved it down to a 4-day work week now because you can be just as productive in 4 days as you could in 5.
Wow.
And you will see AI will affect GDP here in the next few years. You'll see it. And it'll be scary because there'll be fewer jobs but more productivity. And so we're heading towards that world, and we need to start thinking about that now. How are we preparing people for that?
Well, and how are we preparing government for that?
Right.
Social services?
We have a void of leadership right now. They're not thinking about this problem.
So what are the ethics around AI? I mean, what are the biggest topics of AI that are being discussed within your circle of people that are in this?
Well, that was one of them for sure, the automation. But I think ethics is interesting, right? Because is AI ethical? It's a funny question, but I think the answer is well, let me back up a little bit. I think what we're going through right now is an evolution of trust with AI. So we trust things when they're reliable and persistent. We trust things. Like, you do something, oh, that's an easier way to do that, I'll keep doing that.
Right.
Like, if I asked you if you would give up maps right now,
yeah,
would you? No.
Of course not.
No. So you sacrificed a little bit of privacy because now Google knows where your home is and where your work is, and
yes,
for that convenience, right?
Everywhere I drive.
That's right. So every day people are making this choice to sacrifice privacy for convenience. And so that's happening all the time, but I think, so this question of ethics is a hard one because if AI learns from data, what data are you giving it, right? Mm-hmm. So if all the data we have right now is that, minorities commit crime, then that's what it's going to learn. So we have to be really careful of that, right? We have to be careful of that. You don't want to teach it and then perpetuate the problem.
Right.
So we have to be conscious of that. And I think there's enough, in the shows I'm going to, there's a lot of focus on that right now. So I think, but think about autonomous cars, right? What if a car is going down a road and a child steps in front of the car and there's a cliff on the right? The car has to either drive off the cliff or hit the child, right?
Well, unless the intelligence of the car is such that it anticipates both from a distance and has already decided on how to avoid both. Like, I was just in Europe a few weeks ago, and I rented a car, and it had the thing where if you got too close to the car in front of you, it would slow you down on its own. And I didn't know that it had that. Mm-hmm. So it took a couple of times for me to figure out that it had that.
Yeah, it should make it better. Absolutely.
And it was like, while it startled me, it was amazing.
Yeah. And it should make that better decision, right? And the roads will be safer with autonomous driving. We're terrible at driving.
Well, yeah, and I think the thing about AI, people, give the example you did about the kid and the cliff, and I think that those are legitimate discussions to have. But at the same time, what if we can prevent both in the first place?
That's right. That's the goal. That's the goal, right? That's absolutely the goal. And you should have a quicker response time, and it should be easier. And that's the goal, right?
So what does the next 3 years look like for you?
For me, head down on HyperGiant Sensory Sciences and helping out with the HyperGiant industries. We have some really big announcements coming. I can't mention right now, but you'll see in the next month and a half.
Well, this show won't air for like a month, so go ahead.
Okay. Some big announcements coming, but I think we're on a mission to create the preeminent company in the world for products and service, emerging technology products and services, and so I think we're in for an exciting future. But I think I'm head down on that and continuing to give back to the community. I like to mentor startups and talk to people and spread the word and try to help calm any anxieties about AI.
Well, good. Well, Dave, thanks so much for being our guest today. Okay. Listeners, please go check them out, hypergiant.com/divisions/sensory-sciences, and you will find them if you can get through that whole thing. Go check out the show at thenextlevelshow.com or just put it in the podcast or YouTube, The Next Level Show. You'll find us. We'll be back next week with another great guest. Thanks again, Dave.
Thank you. Appreciate it.